It's been watched by millions, picked apart by anyone with even a passing interest in justice.
We all live on Avery Road. This could be any of us. You're a joke.
Was evidence planted? Were confessions coerced? Is Steven Avery a cold-blooded killer? These are just some of the questions raised by the controversial 10-part documentary series, Making a Murderer. You've heard the prosecution's case. You've heard from the defense. But there's an underside of the complicated 3-decade-long story.
It's not like that.
That's never been heard. Until now.
So your family is in a mega spotlight right now, and I'm curious how this is affecting both of you.
It sucks knowing that like our business is getting out there.
In their first ever TV interview,
I was mad, I was upset.
Why would you just throw it away?
Steven Avery's children, twins Bill and Steven Jr., agreed to sit down only with me to talk about a feeling I know all too well after discovering my own father, Keith Jesperson, was the happy-faced serial killer. The feeling of living in the shadow of infamy.
Steven, why did you agree to do this interview?
A lot of it was for you, like, because your backstory, like who your dad was, like what you dealt with. We have similar backstories, and you actually know what it's like to go through it.
Though the boys don't recall being asked to participate in the documentary, at the time they say most of the family wanted to stay out of the public eye. But now they feel the time is finally right to share their story.
When is the last time you spoke to your father?
Oh, wow. I mean, that was 20-some years ago.
Do you have any questions for him?
No, I really don't. Like, the main question would be, like, I mean, you can't ask him, like, why'd you leave? Because I know why he left.
Before everyone had an opinion about his life,
I think the evidence was overwhelming.
Steven Avery was a 19-year-old boy in love. He had just met a young single mom named Lori Matheson, and after a quick courtship, the two married and started a family of their own, 5 kids in all, with Bill and Steven Jr. rounding out the bunch.
It's clear to see that he did love us, that he did love our mom, but there's always two sides to people.
He'd had run-ins with the law before, but by the time Steven Sr. was 22, by his own account, he felt blessed and content. Then, as shown in episode 1 of the documentary, a local woman was attacked and beaten while jogging. Almost right away, Steven Avery was arrested and charged with sexual assault and attempted murder.
The sheriff told me, I got you now.
Steven swore his innocence, but as seen in the documentary, after a brief, some would say, shoddy investigation, he was found guilty and sentenced to 32 years behind bars. A family lost all sense of normalcy.
Bill, what is your earliest memory of your dad?
I guess more or less seeing him or visiting him in prison.
So as a little kid, why did you think your dad was in prison? Did they ever explain why he was there?
If they did, I don't remember. Like as a kid, like I just knew I didn't really have a dad. I didn't know why. Maybe somebody might have told me, I just never really understood.
Something else the kids couldn't understand at such a young age, what the world now knows, is that their father was completely innocent of the crime for which he was imprisoned. It would be a full 18 years until DNA evidence exonerated Steven Avery of the brutal sexual assault. 18 years too late to save his family.
When you hung out with your dad, what kind of things would you do or talk about? Do you recall?
I don't really recall any of that. I remember him giving us like hugs and kisses, but I think the visitation was like 3 hours or something. I mean, you can't really build much of a bond on a 3-hour visitation once a month.
A few years after his incarceration, Steven's marriage to Lori fell apart. As the children grew older and more independent, their relationship with their father began to fade as well.
Eventually, you decided not to visit your dad anymore. What happened?
Me and my brother, like we had like ADHD, so we never sat still. Always bugging other inmates, doing their visitations with their family and stuff. And my dad ended up getting like upset, so he spanked us.
Do you feel like your dad was disciplining you, or do you believe that he was just out of control?
A little bit of both, in a way. I was just tired of it.
Yeah.
Being young and to know you're gonna go up there and get spanked. And finally we actually got our visitation pulled.
And that was a relief?
Yeah, I think it was.
But even though they no longer had any physical ties to their father, shaking his reputation would be another story entirely.
Your father's been accused of rape for 18 years. He's serving life for that. Having an Avery name, what does that mean in the community?
A lot of people associate it with like, we're a bunch of like troublemakers, we're in a sense like bad people, we don't care about the law. I mean, the arrogance of people are just like, the sins of the father fall on the son, which it shouldn't be like that.
Can you recall an incident or anything that's happened that impacted you because you had the Avery last name?
Yeah, I mean, me and my brother, we applied for this security firm. We more than qualified for it, but this is all hearsay. But one of the main guys that works there is like it would be like a cold day in hell before they ever get hired.
Despite their adversity, the Avery boys thrived under their mother's guidance. Both joined the military and eventually started families of their own. It was a challenging life, but even knowing what they know now, they stayed positive.
But if he's innocent, you were robbed too.
Yeah, definitely was. I mean, at the same point, like, I had a good life. Like, I would not trade this life to see where that life led.
Then, in 2003, just as the Avery boys were becoming men, life as they knew it took another drastic turn.
How you doing?
Oh, hello.
Now we're to the point that he's released, and I'm trying to imagine, even though he's a stranger to you, what do you feel about him serving 18 years for a crime he didn't commit?
I actually feel bad for him because I think about like if that would happen to me, just how, mad and angry and everything, and to know all it took was a DNA test. I think he deserved to actually be set free a lot earlier.
Now this is a new dynamic. How does your life change at that point?
It changed. Like, my last name got better because once he got exonerated, a lot of people had, in a sense, like joined our side. In a sense, it felt nice.
The good feelings would not last. 2 years after Steven's release, local photographer Teresa Halbach disappeared without a trace. Last known location, Steven Avery's property.
Do we have a body or anything yet?
I don't believe so.
We have Steven Avery in custody, though.
Once again, Steven Avery becomes the main suspect in a heinous crime. And for some in the community, there's an eerie feeling that history may be repeating itself. Coming up,
Here's a clip from the show Making a Murderer.
for the first time ever, Steven Avery's boys sit down to watch the documentary everyone's talking about. And the one opinion you've never heard.
Is your father guilty of the murder of Teresa Halbach?